I'm a patent attorney. I have a PhD in biochemistry and over 20 years experience in patents and IP rights. The lecture is open, so if you have any questions, feel free to stop, raise your hand and ask. I don't follow any comments written, so Jafar, maybe you'll follow it,
Yeah.
and if there are any questions, just let me know.
Sure.
Okay, a little bit about the about my company, Paulina Ben-Ami. Where is it? So we are a small, medium-sized company having about 8 patent attorneys in various fields: chemistry, biology, computers, software, mechanical engineering, etc. We have a few law attorneys which handle trademarks and commercial contracts and stuff like that. The company was established in 2001 by Paulina Ben-Ami, which is actually the first woman patent attorney in Israel. She established the company after retiring from Weizmann Institute, after being their in-house patent attorney, and she wanted to establish a company that gives service that she didn't get as the Weizmann Institute in-house. So that's the basic concept of the company. We are ranked 4 to 6 in the DNB ranking, which varies depending on the year. What is a patent attorney? A patent attorney is not a lawyer. All right, I have to emphasize that. We are not lawyers, although some patent attorneys in Israel do have a law degree. In the US, you must be a lawyer. In Israel, you don't have to be a lawyer. Patent attorneys are authorized by lawyers to file and handle all IP rights, such as patents, trademarks, designs, etc. And in order to become a patent attorney, you have to have some sort of degree, science degree or technological degree, biochemistry, medicine, engineering, computer science, etc. After which you have to undergo 2 years of internship in a known company, and then undergo 2 exams, one oral and one written, which are very similar to the bar exams for lawyers, but with emphasis on patents. So that's the main concept of a patent attorney. Why handle intellectual property and write patents? In the old days, in 1975, for instance, the 5 top companies in S&P Standard were IBM, ExxonMobil, P&G, General Electric, and 3M. Those companies had huge amount of property. They had computers, they had industry, they had lands, they had quite a lot of tangible assets that you can actually sell and see and feel. During the years, and here the graph stops at 2015, but in 2025, the 5 top S&P companies are actually Apple, Nvidia, Microsoft, Amazon, and Meta, and they have over 87, or actually over 90% of their assets, the intangible assets in terms of patent, designs, trademarks, and so forth, whereas their tangible assets are very, very reduced. So that's one of the reasons to focus and put a very good emphasis on improving and developing your IP rights. Those intangible assets are actually anything that can be created by the human intellect and can include mainly patents, trade secrets, contracts, trademarks, and also designs and copyrights, and even performance rights. If an artist performs a certain song or lyrics on the stage, they have rights of their own. The IP rights are divided into two main categories: registered rights and non-registered rights. The registered rights mean that you have to register your right in the patent office, or else you will not get any rights. Patents, trademarks, designs. Non-registered rights are received or obtained by mere creating them. So if you write lyrics, if you write a book, if you draft a code in the computer, so all of these are actually, by virtue of drafting them, you are protected. You can protect them also as a patent or as a trademark and then register them, but you don't have to, and sometimes it's preferred not even to write them, as in the case of a trade secret. So if you have a secret that it's not easy to reverse engineer, sometimes it's better not to register it, not to even mention it. So how to protect your inventions, your developments, your company's needs, and what can be protected? So you can protect your technology, your design, your brand, a particular expression of a specific artifact, a method of treatment, a method of doing something. Each IP right can be protected differently. Let's start with the technology, which is actually best protected in patents. So what is a patent? I don't know how familiar you are with this word. A patent is given to an inventor that discloses, that present to the society a new technology not known before, and in return, and if it is considered new and inventive, you get 20 years of exclusivity in which you can prevent others from copying your invention. Okay? Notably, a patent is territorial, which means that if you file a patent application and get a patent in a certain country, you can prevent others from copying it in that country. If you don't file a patent in a certain country, others can copy and utilize your invention in that country. There are very strict timelines to prevent people from filing in other countries after they find out someone is copying them in that country. So you really have to be very careful and meticulous where to file and be very, very cautious. The patent, as I said, gives you 20 years of protection from the filing date, which means that if you file an application in January 2026, but you get the patent itself only in 2028, the patent is in force until 2046 and not 48. So
Here a question. Sorry.
yeah,
Here is question. When talking about software, for example, because most of the ideas now we are talking about software and AI solution, is it under system here
it's
or
in
it's totally different?
a software has actually two options of protection. One is a copyright, because as I said, it's
Hmm.
a written disclosure. So the code itself, the whatever you are writing, is protected as a copyright. However, copyright can be easily modified. I mean, if you change a single code, a single line, it's a completely different code, and it might do the same function. So another option to protect it is in a patent, in which you don't disclose the code itself, but you disclose the concept, the
The
algorithm,
idea and the coding, you mean?
the idea and the algorithm. So for instance,
Yes.
if you say, I have a method for predicting diabetes onset. Okay, the method comprises, and then you list the steps of the method, which include inputting into a system data regarding age, sex, the fat content, etc., and outputting the result without specifying how the program actually works. You can get protection by virtue of just disclosing the concept of idea without being specific about the code. So I hope that that answers your questions. We'll elaborate it a little bit later
Yeah.
in the upcoming slides. So a patent is actually granted on a product, a method, or but not on an idea. So if you have an idea that you think that can be implemented, if you have a method, as I said, let's say, of predicting diabetes onset, but it's only an idea, it's still not well established, and you have no proof that it can actually work, then I usually would suggest wait with a patent until you have at least some sort of proof of concept or basic understanding that it can work. Otherwise, you spend money on a patent and eventually it will fall. So if you're in the medical field, you can file a patent on a device, on a system, on a medical device, a medical compound for treatment or for preventing diseases. The device can be a known device. For instance, if you have a device for colonoscopy, but you have drafted a brand new algorithm that can identify lesions within the colon and avoid the doctor's mistakes, so the device is the same. You didn't invent the device, invented the algorithm that identify it, so that falls under the device or system, depends on how we define it. As I said, the invention must be new, which means novel, and inventive, meaning it was not previously disclosed by anyone else, including you, before the filing date. So in case you go to a convention and you display a poster saying, I have invented a brand new colonoscopy device, and 5 days later you go back home and you file a patent application, I can assure you that once you start seeing money from your device, people will come and copy you and will find that poster presentation in that conference, and your patent will be void because it was disclosed before you filed the application. So whenever you intend to present your work, to try to try and raise money, whenever you post your invention in public, don't do that unless you first consult with a patent attorney or before you file a provisional or any patent application. Otherwise, you are at risk of losing your rights. I have a very, very recent example for that. Tel Aviv University approached me and they had a very nice medical device that they wanted to file a patent for. So they gave me the disclosure. I typed in a quick search in Google and I got only 2 results. One of the results was a poster, not a poster, a short paragraph disclosing the
Yes.
invention in a convention near which was just published. So I told them, sorry, it's published. You can't get a patent anymore. And we didn't file the patent eventually. So, and those are professors and universities who knows their job. So it can happen to anyone, and you just have to be very, very careful. Okay, as I said, a patent is the right to exclude others from practicing or copying or producing your invention. It does not mean that you have the right to perform your invention. What does it mean? For instance, you invented a car, 4 wheels, steering wheel, doors, and a motor, and you include in the car a carburetor. But the carburetor is protected by a patent of someone else. So you get a patent because you invented the car, but you cannot sell or produce the car without paying royalties to the carburetor inventor. So that's a very neat trick, I can say. Another thing, a patent does not give you any rights until it is granted, which means if you file a patent application and it's in examination, or it hasn't been during, or it's still pending and hasn't even started examination, you have no rights. You can notify an infringer that you are about to get a patent and he should stop, but you cannot force him to stop. So you should be very careful about it. There are ways to accelerate examination and get the patents faster in order to avoid such cases, but it should be understood that there are no rights until grant. Okay, so that's the first line here. And another thing, as I said, the patent is territorial per country. It's very expensive to file in all countries. There are almost 200 countries in the world, and filing a patent in all those countries is almost impossible. Even large pharmaceutical companies do not file all over the world. They file in main countries where they want to have protection, and they calculate where to file in order to get optimal protection. So when you file a patent application, you have landmarks, as I mentioned before. You don't have to file immediately in all countries. You can file in one country, wait file in a PCT application. These are, which gives you another year and a half to decide in which countries to file, and only then decide where to file. These are all filing strategies which I will probably won't be able to get in this lecture, but it is highly advantageous to consult with a patent attorney how to file, where to file, and what to file. So if we'll have time, we'll get to that. And if you have questions, you can feel free to ask me even after the lecture. Okay. Why draft a patent? As I said, it's a very long, it's a very expensive procedure. Why use a patent? It boosts your company's value. You hear about unicorns. Unicorns are actually small companies of 1, 2, 3, 5 people who developed some sort of code or whatever in their backyard and sold it for millions of dollars. They didn't sell a company. They sold a patent. They sold an idea. So it gives you actual value if you have a patent. If you don't have a patent and you want to sell your idea, people won't buy it. They will say, okay, thank you for your idea. I have a 50%, I have 50 personnel who can develop it in 1 week. Thank you for the idea. We'll continue from here. Okay. Licensing. If you have a patent and you decide to establish a company and you have a problem to distribute worldwide. So if you have a patent in the US, you can go to a certain company in the US which is in that field and tell her, let's say you have a new drug, you can go to Novartis or AstraZeneca or I don't know, Pfizer, and tell them I have a patent, I have a drug. I'm gonna give you a license for selling and distributing in the US, which you rule, and you just give me royalties. So you don't have to monitor and handle all the difficulties in foreign countries. So you can just license to others. If you are trying to raise investment or trying to be acquisitions, if you have a patent, it's much easier. People are more willing to give you money if they see that you have a patent, and it raises the chances of getting money back. Collaborations. Many people file lawsuits against other companies in order to bring them to the table to try to do a collaboration. If you have a patent, you go to that table much stronger than if you don't have a patent. It can also drive away competitors. I mean, if you have a patent and someone tries to I don't know, compete with you, and you have a patent, usually they will try to avoid that. And I don't know, sometimes they will wait until the patent is no longer valid. Last year, I was involved in a lawsuit for a water bottle. Our client had 2 patents in Israel, and some other company, not company, personal importer, started importing water bars, which are very similar to those protected by that patent. And he lost in court. He had to pay penalties of 50,000 shekels, and all the devices that he brought were destroyed. So he lost a lot of money. So yeah, patents can give you quite a lot of protection, and it's very nice. As written here, one of the largest SUE awards was 2.5 billion That's in the pharma industry. Okay, so it's not, I don't know where you are, but it can be there. It's 2016, not so far long. Okay. Apple and no, the other one, Samsung, are two huge companies that have lots of patents and lots of trademarks and designs, and they always sue one another. And they say, if you sue me, I'll sue you. So it's eventually some sort of a horror balance. So it's also another way to protect yourself. I understand that you guys are in the medical field, so I brought you a small,
Yes, health medical field.
what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So a few recent, let's say, highlights. I mean, Corona was not, oh, sorry, was, I mean, when it emerged into our life, many companies changed their R&D and started developing diagnostic tools, hygienic tools, devices for hygienic, for hand washing, for monitoring how people wash their hands and replace their gloves and everything. So the amount of patents that were written and filed during the first 2 years of COVID, I mean, it was an enormous amount of applications. Most of them are no longer relevant because it stopped, but the amount of development was huge. For instance, we had a company, Ram Global, which developed a highly sensitive sensor to identify a single molecule of COVID while breathing. So you just blow into identifying in drunk drivers, and it gives you an instant identification whether you have COVID or not. Some of the hand washing elements, devices, and systems are now implemented in various healthcare institutes and hospitals. And medicines, I mean, yeah, it's gonna take a while until we get the patents, if it's gonna even be there. A few examples of patents that were granted or filed. For instance, this is a system for determining user physical condition, a general definition, okay? It's a very general definition, and if you go into the application itself, you can see specific conditions, not just any physical condition. The right one is a method for predicting the onset of diabetes, as I mentioned before, in a population without diabetes. Other patents are related to snoring. I mean, a pillow set for snoring cancellation or electronic noise suppression system that reduces snoring noise. So the scope of protection is wide. There are so many aspects of protection. I can give you so many examples, starting from, I don't know, retina cleaning, stomach shortening, skin engraftment, catheters, any field of medicine. There is someone who thinks of new developments and file new patents, even for well-established systems, devices, and the things are constantly evolving and constantly improving. So, that said, not all patents are revolutionary. Many of them are minor and small. For instance, you wanna file a patent for a pill crusher. So in many hospitals, you cannot administer pills, and you need to administer the medicine to the client. So you have to crush the pill. Current method use a bulk ball in which you crush the pill, in which case you lose quite a lot of material because it gets stuck on the ball. So if you develop a new and improved way to do that, you can get a patent. I'm 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 giving you an example of something that I did. So not everything has to be big. Even small modifications can be patented. Again, the small modification still has to be novel and not obvious. For instance, if you say, okay, I want to do a certain method for, I don't know, let's say extracting essential oils from cannabis. And you say, okay, I'm going to use heat extraction. And heat extraction is well known in the art. So you won't be able to get a patent because it's known. But if you find out that doing the same process, not at extreme heat, but under 37 degrees Fahrenheit, under high pressure, and it gives you very good yield, and it's not known and it's not obvious, you can get a patent for that. So depends on the change, depends on the improvement, and that can be patented. When you draft it, when you think about a patent, when you think about your company or your basic concept of building your invention company, you have to first think of what's the problem to be solved, how can it be solved, and how can it be solved differently? Because if it can be solved differently in other ways, you should include those ways also in your patent to avoid other people copying you or bypassing you. What is the advantage of your solution compared to other solutions? I mean, if it's a faster way or if it's cheaper way, it's good, but it's not sufficient to warrant a patent. What variations can be made? Can you do it from the right, from the left, from 3D? I don't know. Depends on how you do it. You should find different ways. I mean, if I speak with a client and I tell him, he tells me it has to be 3D printed. I said, can it be press molded? He said, yes, but it's ineffective and more expensive. I said, I don't care. It can be done other way. It needs to be incorporated in the patent. What developments can be done in the future? Incorporation of AI, incorporation of other devices, a treatment step after the diagnostic step, improvement of the treatment therapies or treatment regimes. I don't know, one medicament, wait 3 days, give a second medicament. I don't know. If you have an idea, it should be covered and mentioned, and to avoid potential risk in the future. The most important thing is what is the bare minimum version of the invention? What cannot be, what if, what is without it, there's no invention. So that has to be understood by both the inventor and the patent attorney drafting the patent. Otherwise, you might miss the scope or get a bad patent that doesn't actually protect you. And again, and the final thing that needs to be considered is what is your end goal? Do you intend to establish a company and a factory and produce and sell? Do you intend to do an exit and sell your idea? Do you want to do collaboration with other companies? Those aspects needs to be taken into consideration when drafting the patent and considering where to file and which procedure on which filing route has to be taken. So when you go to the patent attorney, you have to give him various things, such as sufficient information. So the patent attorney understands the invention and any other person reading the invention can understand the invention and repeat it. You have to clearly define what you want to be protected and include options or variations to the invention or its aspects. Just for instance, there's a very known case law in the US where someone got a patent for a mechanic device, and throughout the application, he constantly used the term screws for joining the parts together. And he used only screws, screws, screws. And someone copied the invention and instead of using screws, used pins. The court decided that since the application mentioned only screws and gave no other options, then someone using pins is not infringing the patent. So it's very important to include options and variation. For instance, if you develop a treatment therapy and you said, okay, I'm going to give it between 100 milligram per kilo to 1 gram per kilo. So you have a wide range of options. You should give also examples of that range, 100, 1 milligram, and in the middle, at least in the middle. So you have a brand, not just brand options, but also examples of those options. If you develop an algorithm, a prediction algorithm, or a diagnostic device, you should give the option that you can identify, diagnose children, babies, elderlies at different stages of the disease, before onset, after treatment, and you should give various options. And for instance, if the diagnostic is based on bodily fluids, then mention that it can be saliva, that it can be blood, that it can be plasma, that it can be derived from CNS, whatever. So examples and variations are key features. Another small example of big regrets for people that didn't file patents. For instance, a GUI, a graphical user interface, is a way to connect between a computer and the user using logos. They didn't file a patent for that, and currently it's for free for use for everyone. HP and Xerox are well-known companies that didn't file a patent for their devices. The Internet connector, RJ45, it's not protected, and it's copied in every device. So imagine what happened if they had filed a patent, they would be billionaires by now. So yeah. So why do you need a patent attorney? I mean, today, I met a lawyer who told me, you're obsolete, we don't need you anymore. I can go to my AI and he will draft me a patent easily. I don't need you. True and not true. You can use ChatGPT and it will draft you something. Okay, I'm not really responsible for what you'll get, but an experienced patent attorney is still better than ChatGPT. Not that we don't use those. I mean, I don't use ChatGPT. We use a different AI tool, which is concealed and licensed. Meaning, if you go to ChatGPT, you need to take into consideration that whatever you put in there becomes public. And ChatGPT learns from it and will use it for other people. So, yeah, it should be very, very restricted and avoid it as much as possible. So, when you meet me or when I meet an inventor, I have to learn the technology. I have to understand what is known in the field. Usually, I use Google or any other search engine to find other patents in that field to know where I'm standing, where we're standing. The inventor usually comes to me with well-established background and knowledge. However, they are often missing other technologies which are not necessarily public or public enough and not easily found, and he might miss stuff. So yeah, the patent attorney needs to find or try at least do a quick search to see that. I have to understand the invention sufficiently to draft, to understand what you want to be protected and what you want to do with that eventually. And only after that, we draft together a strategy how to protect your technology or your ideas in various ways. For instance, draft a patent, keep it a trade secret. If you have a diagnostic method and all your algorithms are based in your cloud, which no one has access to, and people only input their data, you do the analysis and send them the result, no need to draft a patent. You have your own IP. Hid away, no one has access to it. So you together with a patent attorney, you come across ways to protect your technology. As I said, we do a preliminary search, we draft a patent application, we file it in Israel, the US, Europe, wherever needed, and eventually we handle office action from examiners in those jurisdictions until we get the patent. So AI, I've tried it just for fun, is still not good enough in those terms. It can be very helpful in terms of searches, in terms of background, but they're still not that efficient or accurate in terms of the drafting and the responding to examiners. So that's why you need a patent attorney. I cannot stress enough how important it is to meet a patent attorney. I can give you a small example. I had one client who came to me and he said, I filed 4 patent applications. I said, okay, what? He said, I filed a provisional application and immediately thereafter I filed the PCT application for that exact application. I said, okay, what are the 2 applications? He said, the next day I did some amendments and I filed another provisional and another PCT. So he spent about 25,000 shekels for those 2 filings. And he drafted horribly. And he didn't, and neither of them covered his invention. So then we had to file a request to withdraw the application, which cost him more money. And then we had to draft the patent eventually and do everything from scratch. So yeah, he just threw away over 25,000 shekels just for not just picking up the phone and talk to me for 30 minutes. That would save him a lot of money. So yeah. Other IPs. I mean, I know that you are probably in the beginning of your company and development, but other IP needs to be taken into consideration and should be in the back of your mind. For instance, designs. Designs are ways to protect the external aspect of the object. So if you develop a device, usually it's for the devices, you can protect its outer shape and appearance. For instance, the car that you can see, a Ferrari files hundreds of designs to protect and avoid and prevent others from copying their design. Crocs have protection for their design. Chairs, even a PC printed circuit board. The certain way the components are arranged on the PCB has a specific advantage and can be protected as a design, although it has some sort of beneficiary aspect. The guitar, Jimi Hendrix guitar, is also protected in the design. Design can also be non physical object, but can also be virtual, such as the user interface in your smartphone. As you can probably notice, iPhone has a different user interface compared to Android. Why? Because each one has protected their user interface in a design. Another aspect of a design is a utility model. It cannot be filed everywhere. It can be filed in China, in Germany, and other countries. It's an intermediate between a design and a patent. Usually what happens is that you file a patent and you encounter problems of novelty and inventiveness, and you can get a utility model because then your inventive threshold is much lower. It has less, it gives you protection for only 7 to 10 years, not 20 as a patent, but it's easier to get. So sometimes you can file a patent, and if you encounter problems, go down to the utility model in those countries. Certain aspects can be protected in two ways, as a patent and as a design. Just like I said that if you have an algorithm or a program, you can protect it as a patent and as a copyright. So in this example, Apple had a patent for a slide to unlock patent, and they also have a design how the slide looks like when the iPhone is in locked mode. So the patent attorney can help you protect, find ways to protect your innovations. That said, when you go to design, it is highly recommended that you do that you protect a design that is final. Don't go develop a beta or a prototype or whatever and file a design on it because it is very likely that it will be modified during production, during development. Previously, I showed you the pill, the CAM pill. It was protected as a patent, but could also be protected as a design, as a pill, which has transparent areas for the camera to take images. So it could be protected both ways, theoretically. Yeah. Other IP rights, which are very early for your stage, but should be taken into consideration, are trademarks. Trademarks is actually a name, usually a name or a logo or something that distinguishes your brand from others. It doesn't have to be filed before, so you can publish it and make a name of yourself and file it later. However, when you sit down right now and come up with a company's name or a brand that you want to, or a logo that you want to use, it is highly recommended that before you start publishing it, make sure that no one else uses it or has it protected. I'll give you a very recent example of a client of mine, Annabella. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a breast pump. So the inventor, very early stages, when he was still, there were 2 or 3 of them working in the kitchen, he came up with the name Annabella. Only 5, 6 years later, he decided to register the trademark. And then he found out that Annabella is a well-known trademark for breast pumps. So he had a problem of with the name. So if he had thought about it before, he wouldn't be in the mess. So a trademark easily identifies the source of your product. You drive along the road and you see in your fuel gauge lights, meaning you need gas. You start looking along the road for a yellow triangle, knowing that it's passed, there's gasoline there, or a flower, which is sonol, or a delek, or whatever. So you know what you're looking for. You're traveling abroad and you want to eat. You don't know any restaurants, but you see a big golden M. There's a McDonald's. I know what they're giving. I know the food. I can go there. So it's easily identified and it's well familiar. It usually also implies regarding quality, regarding professionality, durability. I don't know. It gives you ideas of how good the product is based on their on the trademark. People would pay $100,000 for a shirt because it has a small Lacoste on their, which means that it's very, very high priced and very good quality. And I don't know, I would pay 10 shekels for the same shirt without the logo. And it's the same quality, but it's so a trademark can be anything. It can be a name, such as Adidas, a number 747. 747, by the way, it's not just the jumbo airplane. It's also, there's a very long number for chipsets for the computers. It can be a logo. Coco Chanel, American Express, McDonald's, Nike. It can be a combination of a logo and a name, such as Nike, Dolby Digital, Bank Hapoalim. It can be either 2-dimensional, as seen here, or 3-dimensional, such as the Toblerone. Also, Coca-Cola filed a trademark for the shape of the bottle. which is very, very conniving because trademarks have no limits. So they are, as long as you pay, they are in force. So a patent, it gives you protection for 20 years. Trademarks for as long as you pay. It can be also colors. For instance, Bank Hapoalim is well known as a registered red color. Bank Leumi, blue. Bank Discount, green. Orange, the company was orange. Pelephone was blue. So each company had its own color. In those examples, I give you the Post-it. I mean, there are many Post-it brands. However, Post-it, that specific brand, has protected the very specific yellow color in that color. This shoe, it's Louboutin. It's a very expensive designer shoe, characterized by its red sole. Any shoe that you see with red sole should be Louboutin. However, the protection is on a very specific color. Color. So if it's a different red, it's okay. So it's very problematic, but it gives you a very high protection. You can also write a domain name as a trademark. For instance, benami.com is a trademark, and no one else can use that trademark. So I protect my domain name by filing it as a trademark. Trademark can also be a sound. So that's also nice. The advantages of trademarks. I mean, when you open a restaurant or a coffee shop, if you open a regular coffee shop or an Aroma or a Starbucks, people know you and know what your quality and usually will go there. If you have a chocolate, so regular chocolate or Mozart chocolate, Mozart is more prestige and usually is supposed to be better. Regular pizza, Domino's pizza. Regular shirt or a shirt with a Nike. Everything gives you value to your company. I think I'll skip the next one. It's a anecdote for this by Peter Norton is actually one of the inventors of antivirus, of Norton antivirus. And after selling his company, he lives in his beach house, and once a year he goes out, take a picture like that, get paid $1 million for them to use that picture because he registered that picture of him crossing hands, looking directly at the camera with his pink shirt. He registered as a trademark. So they cannot use that picture without his consent, and they have to pay him $1 million every year. So, as I said, it gives you advantages. It gives you exclusivity, easier to market your product or a service. And it's very, very easy to enforce. If someone uses the same logo or try to copy the logo, you can actually say, he's copying my logo, he's doing it without my consent, it needs to be destroyed or canceled. A few years ago, there was a shop called, what's the name? In Tel Aviv, no, not Ralph Lauren. Never mind. A shop that was it had to be closed because it used the same trademark of a very well-known company. So he had to close the shop in Tel Aviv. For instance, those are different logos trying to mimic Adidas. And if someone brings a container with shoes that has those symbols, it can be destroyed because it's trying to copy Adidas and it's illegal. Just a curious. Other IP rights, as I said, copyrights. If you draft a code or something like that, you can get protected by the mere drafting of it. If you draft a code and it's kept in your servers and no one has access to it, you can protect it as a trade secret. Trade secrets has its own rules. So if other people have access to your servers and it's not protected enough, it cannot be considered a trade secret. So it should be very well kept. If it's kept on a computer and you leave the room open and the computer open, people can go in and see the secret. It's not kept. So it should be very, very well kept. Those are small examples of trade secrets that I'm guessing you know. Coca-Cola recipe, KFC have a secret sauce. Also, McDonald's have a secret. Burger King have a secret sauce. WD-40, that's the 40th formula. No one knows what's in there, and it's amazing. It can be used for everything. So those are the other IP rights that need to be taken into consideration. I mentioned artificial intelligence. As I said, a patent attorney should know and actually implement artificial intelligence tools such as ChatGPT or other AI tools. The problem starts when someone, I don't know who, goes to the AI, asks him to invent something. And he had an idea and said, all right, let's go to ChatGPT. And then the ChatGPT gives him an idea and a solution, and a theoretical solution. And that person, that inventor, goes and files the patent application therefore. Who is the inventor? The artificial intelligence? Or the inventor who asks the artificial intelligence for the question? That question has not yet been decided in court, and it will be. So I don't know what's going to happen there. There is at least one very recent case law in terms of copyrights. If a certain AI was created an image, so it's a AI generated image. No one knows who is rights on it, but in a certain case law where the AI was taught using other artists' art, and the AI generated its own creation, those artists actually sued the AI company, stating that the AI copied their art. The federal judge decided last October that the AI did not infringe, did not violate any copyrights of those artists, and it produced a brand new art and not nothing, no royalties has to be paid for those artists. So that's a recent decision, and it's very, very interesting. Another funny case is a monkey. A nature photographer actually walked the forest and dropped his camera. The monkey took the camera and took his own pictures by mistakes. So the photographer went back and developed those images and started selling those images. And wild nature preservatives sued him for saying that the picture belongs to the monkey and nature and not to him because he didn't took the picture. The court has decided that a monkey cannot have rights. So the picture actually belongs to the photographer itself. That's it for now. As I thought, I mean,
Thank you, Zim. Thank you.
I have about 30 more slides just for
This
if
is
I have time.
one of the most important sessions regarding the patent and the IP. Any questions, Zafer, Dr. Samir?
If there are any questions, feel
Prof
free to
Michal,
ask.
you are most welcome. Hi, Prof Michal.
Hello.
Hi, Prof
Hi.
Michal. Yes, Zafer, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for your introduction and all these data you have given to us. It's very interesting, very rich. And I don't know how many questions that I am allowed to ask, first of all, because
Yeah, 5 minutes, Zafer.
5 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, for all.
So one question is for general, let's say, information, because I have this info in my head. It's just for to fulfill my curiosity. When you said about being an attorney, you don't have to be a lawyer. So you said that all what you need a certificate and 2 years internship and then doing an exam. By the end, do you get a license from a certain, let's say, authority or something?
From the Justice Department in Israel, yeah.
Okay. So from the, okay, Ministry of Justice, you mean?
Yeah, Ministry of Justice. There are about 700 patent attorneys, registered patent attorneys in Israel.
I see. Okay. Now to the more, let's say, precise questions referring to what you said already. You said that you can take a patent or, let's say, a trademark on design. So, for instance, if I have a device or something and I would like to apply for a patent, can I apply for something which is only design or should be something tangible? Let's say doing a prototype and then afterwards I can get a patent. This is my first question.
If you have a prototype, then and you have a proof of concept, then when I draft the patent, I rather draft a patent and not the design because the design is very, very limited. So the patent doesn't care how the device looks like. It just states it has a water inlet, it has a water outlet, it has a chamber, it has a membrane, it has whatever. So and it doesn't have to be in a certain design or shape or any other way. So you have freedom to modify it and make it your any way you want. So the design eventually in medical devices, I usually think it's the last option in designs. For instance, if you develop, I don't know, a urinary trap, okay? So it has to be a very specific shape in order to fit the urinary tract. So then, yeah, you can protect the design because the design has a functional meaning which cannot be altered. So yeah, you can protect that as well. But it really depends on the invention itself.
I see. Do I have more or I don't have? One question. Okay, but
one
maybe
minute.
one of my colleagues would like to ask. I don't want to take all their chairs.
No,
So
go ahead,
if anyone,
Zafar. Yes, you can ask. Yeah.
okay, thank you. If I want to come to your office, let's say, and I ask you to start applying for a patent for me, and in your turn, in your side, are you going to make, let's say, a sort of searching or looking into different sources in the area or the country that I'm going to apply for, whether there is, let's say, something common in advance, or I should do this myself? And what is the procedure to do or to start in these all steps, let's say?
Good question, Zafar.
I always recommend do your own search before coming to meet the patent attorney. Okay, I'm searching for the in. Do you perform your own search? Okay, those are free databases. You can go to the USPTO. You can go to Google Patents. You can go to WIPO database, EPO database. They are very convenient search engines, which allows you to search for patents and patent applications worldwide. I mean, if there's no patent in US or Europe or PCT, it is highly likely that there are no other patents elsewhere, in China, for instance. But after you do the search and you're convinced that there are no patents elsewhere, and you come to me, then it depends on the invention eventually, because sometimes I say, no, I'm pretty sure there is an invention somewhere written somewhere. Let me do a search. I recommend doing a search. Or I sometimes say, you know what, let's not do a search at all. Let's draft a patent application and let the examiner tell us if he finds anything. And then if he finds, and do it fast, do it in an accelerated route. So within the year, you get either a patent or an office action.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zeid.
Highly appreciate it. Thank you.
Zafar, before we start with the Prof Michal, I want to mention something very important. There is a big difference between validating your idea and to check if it is patent or no. So the office that and the procedure that they've talked about to check the patent itself, but validating the idea is totally different here. Zeid, thank you very much. We'll meet again. Thank you, appreciate it. We'll keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Appreciate
nice
it.
to meet you. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Or
I already shared your contact with the participant. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Prof Michal, hi. Nice to meet you here.
Bye-bye.
Hello, I'm happy to be here.
Hi. Yes, you can start. Hi, Prof Michal. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm happy to be here, and I would like to take you through my story, but I also at the same time would like to invite whoever wants to ask questions, make comments, react, because I'm going to talk about AI, and I'll share with you some of my story of doing AI during this presentation. And as we all know, and we all do, we use AI on daily basis these days. So what I'll share with you is at the front of what hospitals and pharma companies are asking for. At the same time, I'd like to share with you more practical aspects of AI, and that can come from your questions. So the talk is about AI in medicine, and I'll start by sharing that I have experience working with Cleveland Clinic, which is the best or the second best, depending on which year, hospital in the world in terms of smart hospital or technology savvy hospital. And IBM and Cleveland Clinic has a long-term relationship and signed an agreement where IBM put the quantum machine at the Cleveland Clinic cafeteria. So if you come to the hospital, next to one of the cafeterias there, you see a quantum machine, and it runs a lot of the analysis that the teams there are doing. I didn't prepare to talk about quantum specifically, but if someone has any question, I'm happy to share high level what we are doing there. I assume you see my slides, right? Okay, so just to make it easy to track, I'll tell the story from my own personal perspective. I did PhD in physics in statistical mechanics at Bar-Ilan University. And when I moved to US, to California, to work at UC Berkeley as a postdoctoral student, it was around 2003, and I joined a team led by Michael Jordan. Not the Michael Jordan you might think of. It's a different Michael Jordan. Yes. He is a known leader in statistics and bioinformatics. And if you Google Michael Jordan and statistics, you might still get basketball statistics. But if you write computer science, then immediately Michael Jordan, my own Michael Jordan, come up. And he was one of these leaders who was developing technology that is based on computer science and statistics. And in these days, when machine learning was developed in the 80s to the 2010, working on AI or machine learning, the way it was called mainly at the days, meant that it's sufficient to use my own laptop. I don't need any unique machines or anything else. Typically, the data was composed of thousands or tens of thousands of examples. And the challenge was to try and predict based on history. So, for instance, work that we performed was trying to predict what authors will write about in papers. So we learned from a corpora, a collection of documents, and we predicted what will be written there. That project in California was funded by the Department of Defense in US. And you can imagine the Department of Defense in US had interest in being able to automatically analyze large pieces of text. So they wanted us to be able to predict who was the author of a certain text and these kind of questions. And we did it in the research, we analyzed machine learning conference papers, but the technology was the same idea that can be applied in many different areas. And that was the 80s to 2010, more or less. But then the different leaders started to show that there's one family of algorithms that outperforms the rest. And I do remember in 2010, there was an ICML, the International Conference of Machine Learning, an international conference that came to Israel and was in Haifa, hosted by IBM. And that international conference hosted students of a very famous figure in machine learning called Jeff Hinton. Last year, he received Nobel Prize for his work in machine learning. So at that year in 2010, his students showed that they are extremely successful in the ability to identify numbers. So the challenge, the competition was, when you write a zip code in handwriting, you write the zip code, it's numbers in the US, you want the machine to read these handwriting figures and to be able to identify which figure it is. And there was a well-known data set from US zip codes that different teams tried to be able to perform well on identifying the figures. And deep learning, meaning a certain type of machine learning algorithm, was found to perform the best. And Jeff Hinton, who last year received the Nobel Prize laureate on that work, showed that you can do backpropagation on deep learning and offered a very novel method to do it. So I'm taking a break here and asking you if, I don't know your background and if you work in this area. Have you heard about deep learning, or is this something that I should say a bit? You didn't hear about deep learning as a method. I will tell more about it. So deep learning is an architecture that mimics what we have in our brain, right? Typical computer in the past was a set of orders, but the way we analyze information in our brain is very different. What we see in our eyes, what we hear in our ears, and what we feel in our when we touch something and what we smell, all of that comes as information through our neural networks, through our sensors. And our brain is organized as a network that fires different signals that trigger other signals. So when we come up with the next word to say, it's not a set of orders that we follow, right? And also when we teach our children how to behave, it's not going to be useful if we just tell them a lot of scenarios. If you go next to the street, do this or that. So we learn and we analyze information in a different way than the traditional computer. We have signals that come from different places, and they trigger activity through a network of connections. A neural network, as you can see in this image, in this area of the slide, has a similar idea that you have nodes that can fire or not fire information. So it can be binary variables that depend on each other, and you can learn the dependencies. And in fact, that's what we do. Unfortunately, as we age, we learn less and less, as you know, and we cannot create more connections, or we create less connections that we have created as young people. But the way we learn is that we have all of these synapses, all of these network neurons in our brain, and they connect in different ways, and we learn a connection. And that's what deep learning is. Deep learning is a system that looks like a network that has many different layers, and the system learns the connection between the layers. And there are different methods. Now it's not the right time to go through the mathematics of how these methods work, but the idea is that there is the paradigm of student and teacher. So instead of giving a set of rules how to identify figures in a zip code, if it's very circular, then it's a 2. If it's very straight line, it might be a 1 or a 4. Instead of having such rules, the idea is that the input that appears on the image, which is pixels of the figure, is analyzed through a network with different layers. And we give examples. Here is a picture that looks like that, and we say that's a 4. A picture that looks like that, that's a 5. So the method to teach the neural network, the deep learning method, is to give a lot of examples. These are the numbers. This is what you see. And then at the end, the system learns the right connections, the way a young child sees a lot of examples, and in the end, things are connected, and the person understands this is a 4, this is a 5, this is a 1. The same approach is being applied in deep learning. So that was a method that was found the best in many different competitions, in many different challenges. Interestingly enough, one challenge like that was also around 2010, maybe it was 2014. I don't recall the exact year, but a young company back then called Netflix was sharing CDs of movies. And their business was to send over I lived in US, as I said, in California for some time. So it was very common that people were ordering movies, CDs to watch movies and sending back and getting more. And this company, Netflix, created a competition and asked the world just openly, made an online competition asking, can you look at all of this data set? These were people ordering movies, and you can see that they ordered this movie. Let's say I don't have any movie in my mind, right? Let's say it's Hunger Game. So they ordered Hunger Game 1, after that Hunger Game 2, after that Hunger Game 3. So they gave a lot of sequences of examples of what people ordered, and they created a competition. They said, we will give you $1 million to the winning team that can predict what would be the next thing that a person will order. Because if you can predict, then they can enhance their business, they can offer recommendations that people will follow, and their business will be much more efficient. So they said, we currently have an algorithm that is able to predict what will be the next movie at this level of accuracy. So we sometimes wrong, sometimes we are okay. Let's say it was 60% of the times we are correct. I mean, the definition is a bit more complex, but let's say that was the case. They said, if you go up to 80%, you'll get $1 million. And I remember all the teams, I was part of IBM AI team back then. All the team were excited. We won this $1 million. We want to win the competition. We went to IBM. We just had a discussion on IP. We went to IBM IP lawyers and we said, we want to join the competition. And the IP lawyers said, oh, but Netflix says, all the algorithms you write, we own them. So you participate in the competition. If you win, you give us your algorithm. So our lawyer said, our algorithm might worth more than $1 million. Why would we participate and then share with a company for $1 million. We can do a business with them with a higher budget, and we don't lose the IP, so we can reuse it for other companies. So we did not participate, but friends of us from different companies and universities participated. And the winning team came from Intel, University of Columbia, and I think it was Yale. So they joined forces because there was a leaderboard. Everybody saw where the competitors are. And what they saw that some teams were at the top line, but they changed. Each iteration, the algorithm was slightly better. And then they realized, like a panel of experts, that if they combine their algorithms, the combination would be stronger than each one separately, and that was the case. So a team of 3 groups of people from different organizations won the Netflix competition back then using deep learning. Each one of them had a different version and flavor of deep learning. And the whole community moved to creating these neural networks with different layers. And the question was what architecture to use, whether to use 5 different layers of neurons, or maybe to have 10, how many entries in each layer, and so on. That became the game. And again, most of the work was on prediction and answering specific tasks. And under this umbrella, I can give you another example that we worked with Maccabi and Asuta on creating an algorithm that will offer interpretation for a medical image for mammography to say whether the mammography contains a breast cancer. You know, women are going at age 50 to 70 more or less to take many of these exams. It's a big burden on the radiologists to look at each and every image, especially that the images most of the time are okay. So the radiologists feel that it wastes their time to look at so many images that are okay, and they might have alert fatigue. They might miss something because they haven't looked in good enough because they got used to everything is okay. So we created an AI algorithm that took a lot of examples where we had medical images and medical history, but mammography images as well, and the answer at the end whether there was cancer or not. And we created a neural network, and we predicted whether on this image you see you can detect a breast cancer or not. And we showed that we could have made a more accurate diagnosis than the radiologists. And we were not alone. Many of the big companies and university groups were able to achieve this level of accuracy. All of that changed with ChatGPT and alike technologies, where the neural network went to the next level of innovation and success. So I guess you all know ChatGPT, right? And used ChatGPT to some extent? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So ChatGPT is a neural network, but has specific characteristics in it that makes it so strong. So what I want to devote our discussion today is what's unique in ChatGPT and the like, where it becomes part of the business in biomedical and how we use it in our analysis. But also, if you want, we can talk about how different companies that IBM is interacting with is using that. And if you have questions on how you can integrate that in your own work, we can discuss that as well, because I have a lot of discussions with different potential clients who are interested in various ways to leverage this recent technology. So what's the big shift? And as you see, we divided the history of AI from very simple methods to more advanced methods to neural networks and deep learning to foundation models. And the concept foundation models was introduced in 2020 in a very famous, highly read paper that says foundation models are neural networks that are characterized in a certain way. What way? One thing that is characterized by is that instead of learning different models for different tasks, you create one big model that answers a lot of tasks. So when we created an algorithm that learned from breast cancer, so we looked at mammography, we looked only on mammography images, and we asked only one task to identify whether there's cancer in the image or not. That was the task. But the way foundation models are working is to first learn from a lot of images to identify how regular images look like, and then to have a task on breast cancer detection or detecting other characteristic abnormal structure of the breast or whatever other tasks there are there. So instead of having many different models each time you define the model, in the foundation models, you integrate a lot of resources. It can be from different domains. It can be DNA, RNA, viruses, text. It can be from the same domain, but you integrate a lot of data and you create a foundation model that learns them, and then you can answer a lot of tasks. So business-wise, you can think about it that you need to invest a lot upfront, because as opposed to the breast cancer where we said, okay, we have 13,000 examples of women with and without breast cancer, we only learned that. Now we would say, give us 100,000, give us millions, billions of data sets to learn from to start with. So the investment of the initial learning is very high. And after we have this initial learning, we gain a lot and we can answer many different questions. So the profit and the return on investment comes much later in the game, right? And that makes the shift that you probably have seen, that the big companies like OpenAI, Google, Facebook, the big companies, IBM is not so big, but is part of these big companies, invest huge amount of money upfront, and then they are the owners and the leaders in the market, and it's hard to compete with them because the investment at the beginning is very, very, very high. And the investment at the beginning is in GPUs. Have you heard about, do you know what GPUs are? Are you using GPUs? No. So our regular computers have a processor that process the information, and it's called CPU, computer process unit, CPU. But long ago, a small company back then called NVIDIA created processes that would be very useful for games. So they, like 20 years ago, created chips, processors, that would be very useful to run video games on computers. And you can think about it, in video games on computer, when somebody, let's imagine a character running in the video game, a lot of the things stay the same in the figure, but the image of this person running needs to change very quickly. So it's a different way to process information than the regular algorithm in computers, where you change everything. Now you need to know that you have to change local things very quickly, and it's okay to stay vague or not to update other things. So it's a different type of processor. And they created GPUs, graphic processor unit, because it was aiming at graphics. And they were very, very lucky and smart. Jensen is the leader of NVIDIA. He was very, very smart as well. And they identified that their processors that are very useful for graphics can be leveraged for neural networks, because the learning process in deep neural networks has similar characteristics, that you update areas in the network. You don't update the whole network at the very same time. So the processors, the hardware that you need to use for learning from billions or huge amount of data in foundation models and beforehand in deep neural networks runs much more effectively on GPUs than CPUs. So the whole industry and the AI teams in the world since 2010, when deep learning became the best algorithm, started to use GPUs, and the need of GPUs keeps increasing. And you might have heard about the competition between China and US, and the fact that US do not allow to sell China strong GPUs. So GPUs that can process very, very quickly a lot of information using these GPUs will enable having the strongest algorithms. So Trump administration prevents China from receiving these advanced GPUs. As a side comment, I will say that unfortunately, many of the industry that generates these GPUs sits in Singapore, that is part of the trade with US, but China might want to overtake it. So we have all of this tension, global tension around this economical shifts that has to do with AI. So AI is moving a lot of things these days. including a lot of political tension between China and US and many other regions in the world. And foundation models is a method that says we will first learn something very foundational on the data. Maybe I'll skip for this slide that shows you how learning foundational information in the data is done in a natural language. So the trick that the teams that have created ChatGPT and the other teams in the many different companies and groups are using is a masking. So foundation model has a very specific trick of masking. What does it mean, masking? You learn from huge amount of data, so you take a lot of text, but instead of requiring some labels on the data, so you want to learn from the data if it's about patents or about innovation in AI, or you want to be able later to classify automatically the text, instead of providing these classification, which are manual and very slow, heavy, and expensive, you can take the text and just hide some of the words there and direct the algorithm to learn the missing words. And if you have huge amount of text there, you can randomly pick a lot of missing words and you can teach the text to learn about these connections. And in that way, you update the weights, the connections in the neural network. So you now have an algorithm and neural network that knows how to fill in missing words. And that's the masking is a key element of foundation models. And the fact that you first learn a huge amount of text with masking, and then you come up with a task, let's say, predicting what the text is talking about or generating an answer to a question. And that task is being performed later on after you learn from billions of texts. And what you see in this slide is that the same idea can be applied in the context of biomedical. So if you want to learn from DNA data, you can mask and let the algorithm learn the letters that are missing in the DNA. So you can learn from a lot of pieces of DNA. If you want to learn from RNA meaning how many expressions of genes appear in the cell, you can mask the information of how many copies you have of this cell, of these genes, and learn that. Or if you want to learn about drug, so drug molecules are combinations of different atoms, carbon and oxygen and so on, and there's a way to represent the molecule in a sequence, and then you can hide part of the sequence. Or protein sequence, there are 20 amino acids, you can hide part of the amino acids. So the same idea of masking and first learning from huge amount of data and then fine-tuning is applied to many different ways that people are learning from data, and there are foundation models for text, foundation models for images, where you mask and you hide some of the pixels in the image, foundation models for DNA, RNA, drugs, proteins, and so on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have a question in this area because what you said, as I know, at least, is a sort of machine learning, right? So where's the role of deep learning comes in this position, let's say, or in this point?
So the deep learning and the machine learning are very similar concepts. So if we go back to the history, what was called machine learning back then, now part of machine learning is deep learning. People move to call it AI, but it's in these neural networks where you have information which is depicted by these circles and connection between the information, which are the lines, and you learn the connection between the information, you learn the weights, that's the algorithm. And what I presented on this hiding, masking, and learning the connection is actually saying some of the words would be these circles. Some of them are observed and you know what you see. Some of them are masked. You need to predict them, and you learn the connections by examples of what you missed. So the algorithm says, oh, I thought that the missing word here is the cat sat on the bed, and then the algorithm is exposed to the answer, and it was Matt. So the algorithm learns that it was a mistake and updates the connection between the word cat and sat to the word bed. So it's all of it is neural network, which is part of machine learning. and it's not a regular neural network, is a foundation model, which is a certain type of a neural network. It's a deep learning method that includes masking and pre-training on huge amount of data and then fine-tuning on specific tasks. And ChatGPT is a deep learning algorithm that is a foundation model with these certain methods. And I don't know if you heard about AlphaFold. I don't know if you work in this area of proteins, any of you, but there are many other foundation models that are being used in this way.
Actually, I don't have any medicine background. I came from another area, but I have an idea about all this because I have been, let's say, using NLP before, and that's why I'm asking. So
yeah, so the traditional NLP before had machine learning methods that are different, and you probably know there was LSI, there LDA, there are all kind of latent Dirichlet allocation, latent semantic indexing. There were all kind of methods to learn about connections between text, which would be classical machine learning. And then these methods were replaced by these novel approaches of foundation models deep learning, where you have this masking and so on. And the whole world is now benefiting from this type of methods of machine learning, certain deep learning. Yeah. And people are using sometimes as synonyms the word deep learning and machine learning, and sometimes to separate out and to say, oh no, this is no longer machine learning, it's deep learning. So it's very confusing. People are not consistent in the way they are using the concepts.
Yeah, maybe we can say a new type or a new model of machine learning, but it's a refined or with a new tuning, let's say.
Exactly. It's a new machine learning method called foundation models, which is a deep learning using this method. I completely agree. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I'm wondering what would make sense. I can share with you what we are doing with the clinic. So foundation models that learn, we can in this way discover new drugs. So I'll just give you one more story because I think stories are easier to grasp than slides. There is the competition every 2 years that the chemists and biologists organized called CASP. And this competition every 2 years in a large conference is a competition on finding the structure of a protein from its sequence. So when you think about a protein, right, it's a huge molecule that is created by only 20 amino acids, so only 20 different building blocks. So you can think about different proteins that are generated from different amino acids. But these building blocks dictate the structure. So certain building blocks connect in one way, the others in a different way. So the proteins we have in our body are created from 20 amino acids, and they have different structure. And the structure says what they can do because, for instance, hemoglobin, which is a very famous protein that is running in our blood, hemoglobin has a structure that can capture oxygen. So if we want to bring oxygen to, if our body, the way our body brings oxygen to different areas of our blood, in our body, it's through the blood system by hemoglobin protein catching the oxygen and taking it. So the structure of the protein tells us what they can do. And in the 50s, there was a Nobel Prize laureate, I don't remember his name right now, who won the Nobel Prize for finding the structure of a protein, and by finding the structure, knowing what the protein is doing. So it was a whole career of a person to say, oh, I know that the protein is combined of these amino acids, but I don't know what the structure is, and to make a lot of efforts to find the structure. Not always the structure can be found by crystallographic experiment, because crystallographic experiment meaning you put light and you look at the shadow and you understand the structure. Not always it works well because sometimes the protein is not stable outside of the body, or the light changes its structure. So it's a lot of effort to understand the structure, and if you understand the structure, you understand the function. But to understand what are the building blocks, what are the amino acids, in what way they are organized, that is relevant, relatively easy, because there are methods like PCR that was done during COVID, was to identify the proteins of the virus to find out if it's COVID or not. So just to align and find the sequence, that was much easier. So what you see here is like a sequence MG, SS, HH. These are examples of names of proteins. There are 20 possible names. And you know the sequence, which one comes after the other, but it doesn't mean that you know the structure. And there was this set of chemists and biologists who created a competition every 2 years. They gave the competitors sequences, so they tell them that's the building blocks and the way they are connected. Tell us the structure. And the way they found the real answer was by experiments. So they perform experiments in the lab to find the structure. But because they didn't want the competitors to see the structures themselves, they asked the competitors to give an algorithm. That the algorithm will have as input a sequence of proteins, as output the structure they believe this protein will have. So then the competitors submit the algorithm in the competition, and for each set of sequence, the answer is a structure. And then they look at the distance, how far the structure that was created by the competitor from the ground truth, from the real structure. And the closer it is, the better the performance it is, and they pick the winners. And each 2 years, there was this competition. In 2018, the team who won the competition was from a group called DeepMind. It's a startup that Google acquired called DeepMind. And the leader of this group, the CEO of DeepMind, called Demis Hasebian. And they won in the competition in 2018, but none of them were chemists. All of them were computer scientists. And they used a deep learning algorithm that was better than any of the other competitors that were chemists and biologists. And everybody was surprised, but they were a little bit better than the rest, and they won the competition. They won the first prize. And then in 2020, when the next competition happened, the same group won the competition with a technology, they call it AlphaFold 2. The first one was AlphaFold, and the second one was AlphaFold 2. And they won the competition by far much better than any of the competitors. And they actually reached the level of the experiment. So experiment has noise as well. And their structures for some of the, not for all of them, but for most of the proteins, was at the level of experiments. So AlphaFold 2, not only that it won the competition by far better than other, it reached the level of experiments in the ability to take a sequence and to understand its structure. And Demis Hasebian, the leader, received Nobel Prize last year for that achievement, for this ability to find the structure of a protein with a foundation model. AlphaFold 2 was a foundation model technology. The AlphaFold 1, the first one that was better than the rest, but not by far, was a deep learning algorithm. So I hope now I convinced you that the foundation models is a breakthrough that everybody is now using, including IBM and many, many other companies. The only caveat why I'm not recommending each one of you to go now and to learn how to do a foundation model is that it requires a huge amount of GPUs. It's very expensive, and you need to be highly educated in order to do that. But to use, like you use ChatGPT, to use a foundation model on DNA, RNA, or proteins, you can use it the same way you use ChatGPT. And that's what IBM have created and many other companies. So we work with these collaborators, Moderna, Boehringer Ingelheim, Technion, MIT, Hebrew University. We work with a lot of collaborators, and we offer them, and we also offer the community open source code that can provide answers on DNA, on RNA, on proteins, on small molecules. And you can see the papers, and you can see there's Hugging Face and open code that is offered in GitHub that everybody can reach out and access and use it in order to benefit from the technology we've created. So I don't know if that's relevant for you to use this type of technology, but I want just to see that we are on the same page and that there's something useful for you here. And again, I don't know what technologies you are developing, but my point is that the same way that all of you are using ChatGPT, you could use other technologies on biomedical. There's also IBM did not create, but others created visual transformers on medical images. So unlike what we did on the breast cancer, where we created and learned, now someone created a foundation model that learns from medical images, and you can use it. Same for pathology. I work with a collaborator at the Technion. They use, it's called, how it's called, GigaPass. So it's and there are also GPT-like algorithm where someone else, I think it was from Google, created a pre-trained model on pathology data. And now whoever wants to analyze pathology data with specific tasks in mind can take the algorithm the same way you took it from ChatGPT and use it. So that's my point. Any question, comments, suggestions?
It is really interesting, and what I can say that I can encourage my colleagues who are working in things more specific and more directed to the let's say medical solutions related to the body, because all these models and libraries, let's say, of course they can't do it alone because they need computer scientists and people who are specialized like you to help them building these models, and then it will be very precise and accurate results, and it will I think shorten the time that they are working on research or doing anything else. It's the same like the example what you said about earlier in this story about the hemoglobin. And yeah, this is what I can say. In my case, something else, because I am a bit far away. It's more, let's say, managing or administrative thing related to medical, but not directly to that. But my question, if I'm talking about myself, okay, I use like others, ChatGPT or all these tools to search and look for data. But if I want to use them to, let's say, collect more data about usage of something, or let's say how many people are interested in a certain service, let's say, what do you recommend? What is your advice for people like me in this case?
Yeah, great question. I will let me see if I have a slide. I don't recall if I created a slide about agentic workflows. I think this is it will not answer your question directly. I will answer it, but first the concept of agentic workflow. Have you heard about that? The concept of agentic? No? Okay. So because I think it's relevant far beyond what we were doing on biology, it's relevant also for your question on how you can benefit further from the current technology, ChatGPT and the like. So the industry is now moving to the next level of benefiting from technology in a different way than just searching information, go running ChatGPT with questions. And what is the challenge or the bottleneck? Why we are not benefiting more from the technology that was created? The challenge is that the AI is limited to certain capabilities. For instance, ChatGPT originally read text, analyzes text. But if you want to go to a database that sits on your computer in an Excel sheet, originally ChatGPT cannot reach out to your database in Excel sheet. It only knows how to answer questions that you ask. But the industry sees that as a limitation. It's not good enough. We want to be more efficient. We want to give orders to ChatGPT that it will be able to perform work that goes beyond the limits of answering questions. And that's the ability of using AI technology to do a full task that involves beyond interface in a chatbot is called agentic workflow. And an example of a simple agentic workflow can be if I want the technology to take an Excel file that I have to analyze correlation between, I don't know, whether let's say I have an Excel file that says how many people reach out to ask me questions and what were their questions about my technology and what is the cost of the technology. And I want to see if there's an interest in an expensive technology that I want to sell. Let's say I have a price tag. So I have one table with price tag to each of the technologies and another table that captured all the questions that people asked me, and it has who are these people and what technology they were interested in. So now I have two Excels, and let's say the way the people are asking the question is not the name I gave the technology. So I have an Excel that says, this technology is analyzing DNA, and I gave it this cryptic name BMFM DNA. And here is a description. It provides you an analysis of DNA. I have a description. And the price tag is, let's say, $1,000. And then I have all the list, description, and price tag. And a different Excel with a person asked a question about the ability to to learn about DNA something. So I want the ChatGPT to connect the question to the description of the technology, to the price tag, and to find which question has an answer with the most expensive technology. And I want to start with that in my work. So I want to be able to answer on that. So this is a task, right? I just described you a task. You cannot do it today because today you just have ChatGPT that you ask questions. You would have had to copy the question of the person, copy the description, ask him. So you want the technology to work like an agent, like a person, not to be able to open Excel, to look at the Excel, to open another Excel, to compare them, and then to provide an answer. So the way it is called if you have such a technology, it's called an agent, an AI agent. And different teams in the world have started to create agents that know how to do stuff. So for instance, there are LLMs, I don't know which one specifically because I use my own, but Copilot or ChatGPT or many others who know now how to open Excel. So you can drop two Excel files and put a task and say, compare this Excel and that Excel, look for a question that has an answer in this Excel, and give me the one with the most expensive task. In order for the technology to be able to do it, you need that the person who created the technology would create a support to what does it mean to open an Excel, how an Excel sheet look like. And this support of technology has a protocol. Like in the past, there was a DVD that could read certain type of disks and other disks cannot read. Same idea here. There's a protocol that when we create a technology that analyzes DNA, RNA, and so on, we created it with a protocol called MCP. And this became the most commonly used protocol. So if I want to apply now a workflow, a full set of agents, I want LLM to read something from Excel and then to use my technology and then to provide an answer, I check that all of it has the same protocol, so it can read each other, so it's all with MCP servers, and that's the very common thing. And then I can start plug and play. I can say, read this and do that and open that. And that's what the industry is now moving towards, and it's very fast moving. And there's a lot of competition there. So some of the LLMs, maybe some you know, some you don't know, are stronger or less strong. Like Claude, I heard is stronger in their ability to do agents. So you can use the chatbot to provide tasks to an agent. And they will open a file and close a file and apply and create a new file. I know that ChatGPT and Copilot now can write code and run the code. So I can tell them run IBM's code that sits in GitHub, and it will go to the GitHub. Will know how to, because IBM created the MCP protocol.
Yeah, I try it. I know.
You do all of that. Okay.
I tried it before.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So it accelerates everything, and the idea for you to use databases, compare things, and so on, is to use agentic workflow. That's the way the community is calling it. It's when you identify agents that you can apply that provide the same protocol so they can connect with each other, and you can plug and play. You can connect different agents. You don't have to wait for some technology to create all the connections, because like the DVD players, now all the different AI agents, or many of them, are with MCP protocols. So once it's with the same protocol, it can answer questions, interact with other technology, and so on. So we do it in the biological space now. And to be very honest, the technology, it's not yet at the place we would have liked it to be. So I see companies claiming that now you can have a co-scientist who will create hypotheses, will analyze data, and provide you the right answer. It's not there. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. And we are doing our work much faster and much easier these days. Everything is done with AI agents. And many companies are reaching to IBM because IBM has typically working with large companies, right? We have consultancy team who can offer how to use open source. Some of the code is open out there, and how to link it to your own business and how to leverage that in an agentic workflow so that you can run it, manage it, and play with it very easily. And you'll no longer need to have an expert AI in your company in order to be able to run that, because all of that can be done through agents. Does it make sense?
Yeah, but still, it's not something open source for everyone. If each one who needs to work on something, he needs API and he has to pay for this. And the one who is controlling this is OpenAI, which is Google. So it's, it's something. I don't know how far IBM has a role in this also, but finally they are enterprises. They have their own stuff. They need work to have income. So it's financial things are always in the middle, and this is something legitimate, I think.
Yeah, the business model keeps changing and very tricky. But we do see a lot of companies opening, so creating open AI agents, open servers, open code. It just shifts very quickly. So it's useful to keep track and look for what you need again and again, because maybe a month ago it costed money, and now some Chinese company might have created it for free. DeepSeek and so on. I don't know if you are aware of all of these
Yes. Similar to
shifting
ChatGPT, yes.
forces. Yeah. Did you have a presentation on DeepSeek in the past?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So DeepSeek is an interesting story because DeepSeek is an LLM that was learning from data in China, and they claim that they were limited to servers that are much cheaper because, as we said, Trump administration, even before the Biden, but Trump is very firm on that, did not allow them to use the best GPUs. So they have weaker hardware. And they claim that they didn't work on the full amount of data that OpenAI used for ChatGPT, and they were able to achieve better results. So they had two main tricks that people are aware of. One is that they benefited from ChatGPT, from OpenAI, because they asked question and received answer and used their data of OpenAI as training data. And that created a very interesting question, because OpenAI did not allow that. But did we all allow OpenAI to use our publicly available data? So,
Sure.
you
Yeah,
know.
No.
So
Of course
in
not.
Hebrew, it says, "Agonev miganav patur." If you stole something from a thief, I don't know if you can be blamed for. So,
Of course.
So that's what was one thing. The other thing is a very different approach. They use the reinforcement learning, which is a method in AI that ChatGPT did not use and seemed to be very beneficial and efficient, much more efficient than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a very strong technology, but is not very efficient. It costs huge amount of money, and it learned from huge amount of data on huge amount of servers very
Yeah.
expensive servers. They did not have to use it, not only because they use OpenAI to train their data, but also because they used a trick that is called reinforcement learning, which is a method in machine learning that leads the learning in a different way than ChatGPT, and they opened it. They opened the DeepSeek, the technology. They opened the code of how they trained, so people can reuse it, and people are reusing it. Of course, you know that if you use DeepSeek and you ask about political things related to China, the answer would be the way they want it to be answered. So it's not like they have their own biases. We all have biases. ChatGPT has its own biases, but that part also has biases. So
Yeah.
you need to take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, I think just to make sure that I prepared all kind of slides, but I'm not sure that it will be that interesting for you because not all of you are in the biomedical domain. I would say that we have a IBM and Cleveland Clinic and the Hebrew University and the ETH and the Tokyo University and MIT and many, many different organizations created an organization called the AI Alliance. AI Alliance is a leadership of more than 150 organizations in the world that says we want to make sure that the development of AI is led by the community and not by very few organizations that dictate what we can use and what we cannot use and have their own incentives. So the AI Alliance is an open organization. Everybody is welcome to join it, and there's a direction how to join it. And it also shares a lot of information about open agents that you can use, agentic workflows that you can leverage. So I don't know if you know, but long, many years ago, IBM promoted Linux as an alternative to the Microsoft owned technology dock, right? What was the name of the technology when you opened the computer? It was Windows.
Yeah.
So as an alternative to Windows, I already forgot. As an alternative to Windows, there was Linux, which was
Linux.
open and you didn't have to pay. And I don't know when I wrote my master degree and I had to pay a lot to Microsoft for Word document in order to write the master on a Word document, I had to pay license. I ended up losing information because it had all kind of bugs. The alternative that I found fairly right after that, and I wrote my thesis in that alternative, was on Linux using LaTeX. LaTeX is an open way to write documents that you don't have to pay anyone anything, and it's just developed by the community as an alternative to Word of Microsoft. So similarly, the AI Alliance is looking for what could be shared openly and easily by the community so that you don't have to pay. And also, how would you be able to trust the technology and what can you know about biases of the technology? So that's the AI Alliance that is highly recommended to track and see. We have created, and I'm co-leading an AI Alliance on drug discovery, but that's very specific for what we are doing.
So
I don't
Bill
know.
Gates will not be happy for that.
Yeah, Bill Gates has enough money for the rest of the. I don't think he has any problem. You know that Bill Gates benefited a lot from IBM. I guess you are aware of that.
Of course.
Of course,
Yeah.
Because when IBM teams wanted to create software to run computers, they looked for Bill Gates and a friend who was writing such technology, and they wanted him to become an IBM employee. And Bill Gates was saying, I don't want to become an IBM employee. I will write you the software, but I own the rights on the software that I write. So IBM paid a lot of money for Microsoft to write the technology, and then all the computers used the same technology because it was so good, and then that was its way to get to every house in the world, and he benefited a lot from that IP deal that was not well designed for IBM, from IBM perspective, was extremely well designed from Bill Gates' perspective. Anyway, the last part that I want to share, and with that to close, is that at the end, part of the challenge with AI is that the technology is cryptic. It's hard to track how it was developed. You don't know when to trust it, when not to trust it, and it's really hard to use it in critical passes, like when you need, my business depends on it, or my health solution depends on it, or my new drug depends on it. It's very important to assess trust, whether you can trust it. So we did a study a couple of years ago with different teams to understand what the community of researchers is saying about explainability of AI. And we saw first that during COVID, so in 2020, there was a huge increase of interest in explainability of AI. So this is an analysis of literature, just seeing what people are writing about. And what we saw is that there are 3 different ways to analyze AI and to make it understandable. One is not often used, and that is to create a technology that is understood by itself, like a machine learning technology that is easy to understand is a decision tree. A decision tree says you want to decide if you see if this person is going to suffer from diabetes or not, and you look at the hemoglobin A1C measures today, you look at the BMI, you look at all kinds of things, you decide if BMI is high, probably more likely to suffer from diabetes. If the person is also smoking, higher likelihood and so on. That's a decision tree. It's an algorithm that by itself explains how you came up with the answer. But foundation models, it's not like that, right? So you cannot, foundation model is not an algorithm that explains itself. So there are ways to analyze post-development of the algorithm. You first have the algorithm, and then you analyze all kinds of cases with the algorithm. And there's a third way, which is causal inference, which is a whole new story. And we saw that people are very, very interested in that, and people were talking about that. I'll just jump to the key messages. I think it'd be good to finish with agreeing that there's a new paradigm for AI in healthcare, and foundational models enable cross-domain learning, accelerating insights, and the potential to support personalized medicine. And agentic systems is the next frontier. As I said, all the big companies are coming to the tech companies to transfer their business, to reduce the workforce by having agents and agentic workflows that run on top of it. And when I say agentic systems can formulate hypotheses, design and execute experiments, reason about outcomes, part of it is futuristic and part of it is current, right? It's not really happening everywhere. It's just the wish and the intent and where the companies are moving. And the challenges are the biases, and that there's lack of transparency, and the verification and robustness, and the collaboration between human and AI, and the education, right? We need to find ways to educate. I talk with the Ministry of Innovation in Israel and Ministry of Education. There's a lot of thinking of what can we do, and we should think about it in each and every area and for each and every population, how to make our students much faster in understanding how to use AI, how it runs, what are agents, how you can apply them, and so on. Because I see the 3 students I have at home, my 2 girls and son, everything they do is with AI. I mean, that's the way you run faster, whether you learn mathematics, computers, psychology, or social servant. It doesn't matter. You can learn much faster with these technologies. So I think the earlier the kids understand how to use and the limitations as well as the opportunities, the better for the students. Any last comment, question, suggestion?
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you,
I
Prof.
want.
Thank you. Yes, Zafar, go
Thank you
ahead.
so much. I wanted to ask you about the AI aliens. Do they have a website, a page
Yeah.
on somewhere that we can follow? As what you
Yes, let
said.
me show you the AI Alliance. Just a moment.
Okay.
Let me just, I will put in the,
Zafar, I already shared the link with you on WhatsApp. Check with your WhatsApp group.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you
I
so much.
sent you the link.
Oh,
I
great.
read that you are,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You can register and you can check the site.
Yeah, and everybody can join.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think at least tracking it, if not joining it, it's good.
Thank you,
Okay.
Prof Michal. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you so
Zafer?
much.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. That was very
Thank you.
richful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof Michal. Thank you,
Have a
Maran.
good
Appreciate
night.
it. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.
Thank you.
باي باي.
باي باي. باي باي.
ظافر
الله يعطيك
بانتظارك
العافية.
بكره. الله يزيدك عافيه. شو
إن شاء الله.
اخبارك؟
إن شاء الله. الله يخليك. من أياك سالم.